Next Sunday, 1 week from today, we will mark 100 days since President Donald Trump took the oath of office and set forth on a mission to fulfill a number of campaign promises. And among those promises, constructing a wall on the U.S.-Mexico border, reassessing trade agreements, eliminating gun-free zones, and appointing judges who will defend the Second Amendment, labeling China as a currency manipulator, and repealing and replacing Obamacare. The list goes on. Of course, joining us to talk about these first few months is Dr. Robert Preuss from Metropolitan State University of Denver. Thank you, as always, for being a contributor here on Politics Unplugged. Glad to have you here.
Well, thank you. Glad to be back.
I think first and foremost, I mean, we know the president has made a lot of promises, but first and foremost, funding, I think, seems to be the issue because Congress is about to run out of funding.
Congress is about to run out of funding. Both parties would, particularly the Republicans, would like to see that not happen in terms of a congressional shutdown, a government shutdown. So we're probably going to see some intense bargaining. And then in real earnest fashion, I think we're going to start to take a look at how budgets are going to shape up over the next couple of years. Well,
and the Affordable Care Act, the president has once again said that this week we will see action on that. Is that doable? Is that possible?
Right. Well, it all really depends on what that language is. And trying to corral these separate factions, the Freedom Caucus, a very conservative faction, moderates, who are concerned about losing some coverage for their constituents, those are the types of balances that we're going to have to see play out in this new language. Although we haven't seen the new language, or we may have recently seen the new language, it's still going to end up in that budget process, and in that congressional process is always messy, and we're not exactly sure where it's going to head.
Because that takes a lot of time, a lot of effort. I mean, this could be really years, right, before you get all that language together for the Affordable Care Act?
Certainly, and one of the things to keep in mind is that under the Obama administration, we had over a year of negotiations in terms of passing that ACA. So within, I think to some extent, movement within that 100 days is an important milestone for the Trump administration, both detractors as well as supporters. And that's why we're trying to see this movement early on, but I'm not sure how long that's going to take. It'll probably take a little bit longer than they would expect.
Than next week.
And next week, that's right.
A recent Politico poll shows Mr. Trump gets his best grade for fighting terrorism, his worst grade for health care. What do you think of that? Well,
I think that fits fairly well with what he's been able to accomplish in these first 100 days. So in terms of foreign policy, well, they haven't been in line with some of his promises. For instance, naming China as a currency manipulator. He has been able to take some proactive action, whether it is bombing and dealing with Syria, taking a tough stand with North Korea. Those are things that presidents can do, and they can be successful. And I think the American public sees foreign relations as an element of that success. The legislative process in terms of health care, in terms of tax cuts, those things are a bit messy, and presidents don't always have control over that element.
So what do you think have been his hits so far, and then we'll talk about misses?
Right. Well, it's a mixed bag in some ways. So the hits have really been some of those big things that he can do on his own. So the appointment of Colorado's own Neil Gorsuch as Supreme Court Justice to fill that needed seat. Very good. Very important to get that done. Withdrawal from the Trans-Pacific Partnership, right? Dealing with some of those trade issues. Those are key things that he can point to. Stepped up immigration. Well, he's hit some roadblocks that we can talk about in terms of the misses. It certainly has been it was part of that platform and part of the thing he's still trying to push through.
Do you think that really big picture, does it really matter to people sitting at home in Colorado watching the president and seeing what's happening right now, that we haven't maybe accomplished as much as he would have liked in the first 100 days?
Right. Well, that 100-day hurdle is kind of mythical in some ways. Right? It started with FDR early on, and he had an extraordinary context in order to move a lot of legislation forward early on. Presidents recently haven't had that success. So in a lot of ways, I think the public immediately right now, as we hear about the 100 days, we say, all right, well, what has our president done? But that sense of feeling starts to dissipate after a few months or a few years, and that first 100 days really seems to be a really small glimpse of the president's actions.
Is it more of the politicos who care about the first 100 days than people?
Well, sure, I think the politicals do, although presidents tend to set themselves up. So in October, for instance, candidate Trump then proposed what he would do for the first 100 days. So presidents set themselves up for that. The public looks, the politicals pay attention. But down the line in a year or so, we'll probably be looking at bigger picture, exactly what has been accomplished.
President Trump's approval rating has averaged 41% during his first 3 months in office. The Gallup polling group says that's the lowest of any president elected since World War II. And look at this chart. Trump's 41% is 14 points lower than the next closest, which is Bill Clinton. So why do you think these numbers are so low?
Well, you know, public approval, particularly in light with the first 100 days, is both a cause and effect. So on some levels, we expect really high public approval, and that allows presidents to be successful early on. As new presidents, the excitement of a new presidential style. At the same time, this president, who, you know, admittedly did not win the popular vote, so we shouldn't be terribly surprised that those public approval ratings aren't as high, has been constrained to some degree. And his party itself really has been constrained, thinking about what does that mean for our prospects in the election and what the public actually wants. Okay,
so let's talk about the next 100 days. What should we expect from President Trump?
Well, I think we're going to move forward on some of those big issues that we haven't seen. We've already been signaled that health care reform is going to kind of continue to be an issue, or we're going to revisit it, I guess, after the failure. We're going to probably see some early sketches of what tax reform is going to look like as the budget process starts to develop, as folks understand what kind of revenue is going to take in terms of what kind of expenses we're going to have. And so we're going to see some of those big issues, some of those big things that both Wall Street, the public have really been expecting. Although, you know, the next 100 days, the next 3 months, those things are going to happen. Exactly how clear and how successful they'll be, that'll all depend on the context.
Well, we'll be here watching, of course. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Price. We appreciate it, as always. So, who wants to be governor? A lot of people are lining up. We'll talk about the race right after this.